get flipped on the other side on Gardner. Flipped it to the inside. Keep it up
What's up,
nice and
Ryan?
high.
Can I move to open this
Or
meeting?
you can bring a chair in.
Make a motion to open the meeting at 5 o'clock? It is 5 o'clock.
I'll second that.
All right. Well,
Well, you
welcome.
brought pens. I have to bring my own pens for Concom.
good to go. All right, so
Moved and seconded. Do we need to vote to open it or no?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
all right. So this is Patrick. This is our third board member. He volunteered and he's on board.
I don't see any signs of visible injuries. How did you do that?
This is Bill, and that's Terry.
How you doing?
So this is Ryan. He's with the engineering firm that we use, Environmental Partners. So he's here to kind of give everyone a little gist of what we've been working on, answer any questions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So is this the order we're going in?
Might as well. He's here,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus of the last couple of years has been, I guess, on the water side anyways, has been supply. I don't know how much Colin has filled you in. Oh. Thank you. So the town's got 3 groundwater supplies, and, you know, well number 1, well number 3, well number 4. Well number 3 has very high manganese and high iron, so the production has been cut back, because wells 3 and 4 are blended together. Well 4 has basically no iron and manganese. So, you know, basically it's treatment by dilution right now for well number 3. If you cut it back enough and you blend it with 4, what the combination of the two meets DEP's requirements. So basically, we've got well number 3, which could do 400 or 500 gallons a minute, down to like a little over 200,
Yep.
maybe. So, you know, obviously you're leaving 200 gallons a minute of water on the table, which is, I don't know, like 0.4 MGD or something like that. So that's not good, obviously. The water's there, we just can't tap into it. Well number 4, like I said, has good water quality. It doesn't have the capacity of well number 3. It's like a little over 200 gallons a minute, I believe. And well number 1, which is the oldest groundwater supply in town, installed in the 60s, I think. It's hanging in there. It's got elevated iron and manganese. It hasn't been elevated to the point where DEP's required the town to cut it back or treat. But, you know, as all groundwater supplies in New England go, you know, manganese and iron, the levels, they continuously go up. So we've been trying to figure out the best path forward. I think, you know, well number 3, first of all, the town has a lot of dirty water complaints. You know, we've implemented a unidirectional flushing program, which has helped. But still, you know, when you're pumping water with high iron and manganese into the distribution system, you're gonna have dirty water whenever there's a main break, or if the fire department has to open up a hydrant and stir up the system. It's just sort of inevitable. So, you know, what do? The first thing we did was we took just a map of the town. We looked at town-owned parcels where aquifer that's mapped is, that we know of, and we said, you know, let's decide where we can do some test wells and see if we can find a new source. So at that point, we thought our best option was basically between wells 3 and 4, which are right along the Merrimack. That's town-owned land. We know there's water there, obviously, we're, you know, a few hundred feet from the river. But the test wells that we drilled, you know, we took initial, the water's there, you know, like I said, you kind of know it's there, but the water quality results were not promising as far as iron and manganese. So everything was elevated.
It was actually higher than what we already have.
Yeah, so, you know, what we saw, it was a little bit, you know, a little bit off the charts, so it didn't, at that point, that doesn't seem like a good idea to try to put a production well in there and permit it, go through all that effort, which is, you know, 3-4 years at best to get through DEP to permit a new well, with iron and manganese levels elevated like that.
Can you get us a map with the aquifers and?
Yeah,
the
I can
well
send
sites
you,
and stuff?
I think Colin's got that. It was, you know, put into a
Part of the
report.
report?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can get your copy of it,
so
Terry.
it shows all that. There, you know, the other area in town where we know there's aquifer is next to well 1, the town-owned parcel that we call Strawberry Fields. You know, the reason we didn't originally go to that parcel or that area to search for water was because of the Superfund site. You know, if we could avoid that altogether, that would be great. So we went, like I said, we went to the river. Results weren't promising.
Is this the Superfund site for well 2 or
What,
different Superfund?
it's, yeah, the same Superfund site that it basically shut down well 2. It impacted well 1 back in the 80s when, you know, that whole situation first came to light. But since then, you know, EPA's treatment and time have, for the time being, solved the issue. They don't, well number 1 doesn't see any impacts for, whatever is it, TCEs, I think?
Yeah, we haven't had a hit for that since like the late 80s.
Yeah.
So
we-
the plume stopped, came back, or whatever?
They've stopped their treatment. They've mothballed, and that their treatment facility is I think the shell of the building is still there.
Well 2?
No.
Oh, for the well 1?
Yeah,
EPA,
EPA built a giant treatment facility behind whatever that. What was the?
Used to
Valley
be.
Screw.
The church, basically.
Yeah, and they were
It's
pumping.
the ones who got all the TCE in.
Yeah, the ones who the polluters. There's a giant facility back there that hasn't operated in
At least 5 years.
decades. I would say decade, and they basically mothballed the whole thing. So as far as EPA is sort of concerned, unless something changes, they're done cleaning up that site, I think.
So why can't we use that?
Well, that's sort of the next decision I think that the town needs to make is, we did some test wells close to the existing well 1 to see if there was better water quality close, you know, what we could get, you know, basically on the same site as well number 1. So those results were promising. We could develop a well that's basically similar to well number 1.
And that's close to 1?
It's I think what we were looking at was, it was more of it would either be a replacement well or sort of a satellite well, so you could run both wells at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know, we haven't gone through any permitting yet with DEP. You'd probably end up with the same volume, allowable withdrawal on a daily basis if we were to develop that well that we sort of, you know, we think we put in a 2-inch test well just to make sure the aquifer was there. And then sort of the next idea was, well, we could go into Strawberry Fields, do some test wells and see if there's the potential for a new supply that would, you know, be totally separate from well number 1, permitted on its own. And that would sort of almost serve as a replacement to well number 3.
Did you ever do any test on that?
No, we
Not
didn't
yet.
do any
Yeah,
tests out.
that was where we kind of left off.
So it's a little, you know, I think the first step we recommended was to do some groundwater modeling, because if it's gonna, in the long term, if it's gonna draw contaminants, then it's not worth it. There's a lot of data that EPA has on groundwater models of that whole area. Obviously, they've done a ton of research and they've got test wells all over the place. So we could take that, we could use our own, you know, we have groundwater modeling capabilities, and we would basically do some modeling, you know, long-term, over however many years, 50 years, 75 years, and just to see if we recommend pursuing that in the first place. So before we start sending drillers out there and, you know, sinking a lot of money into this effort.
When I sat with the EPA and the DEP, I was a selectman at the time, and that's when they were getting ready to close that facility over there, and they said that whole area could never be used, because I was trying to push to get rid of a vacant building there. And they said that land will only be used for walking, and maybe they've changed it, but they were saying that those wells will never be able to be used again. I don't know if you've talked to them about that at all?
We've
The well
talked,
one?
we've talked to DEP just sort of informally about, hey,
Yeah.
this is what we're thinking, and, you know, they won't give you a real answer without, you know.
They don't want to take ownership is what it is a lot of times.
Right, but they don't have any outright objections to us pursuing that option. at
Yeah,
this
so
point.
the area that we had been looking at is more towards your shop.
Yep.
We have there's an easement out there that was put in when the property was purchased originally,
Yeah.
specifically for wells.
Right.
And when I forget if it was a Zoom or a phone meeting that we did with DEP, and they had indicated that they thought that maybe if we went kind of perpendicular away from where the plume had been going,
Right,
we might be
right.
in a better position.
Yeah, so it's almost like there's some areas that are sort of side gradient, even further side gradient than well number one. So you would think that if well number one's not impacted, then, you know, there are some areas that you'd have a good chance of no impacts from the Superfund site. But
Is
again,
that area, is that aquifer replenished by Argila Brook?
yeah, that's, I mean,
That's the one that
it's,
goes around.
yeah, Argilla Brook is right next to well number one. I mean, it's 20 feet away.
If you step out the door of well one, you
Yeah.
fall in Argilla Brook, so.
And that's considered a cold water fishery by the state, so it's,
You got
permitting's
fishermen
not
lined up
easy.
there.
Permitting's not easy no matter what you do, so I mean, that would be a hurdle. But, you know, I don't think it's a hurdle that's insurmountable. There would probably be triggers on that stream that deep, you know, if the stream gets this low, you can't pump the well, you know, all sorts of things that DP would throw at us. You know, tons of conditions, but that isn't to say we couldn't permit a well in that area.
Yeah, that came up during some Conservation Commission hearings, and I'm surprised to hear that there's any fish at all. There are parts of Argila that are actually intermittent streams. They dry up completely.
Right.
It's further up, it's up the hill, so, you know, maybe when it gets down lower, you can, you know, a 2-inch long fish can,
Yeah, I mean, it's the only cold water fishery in the area that I know of.
yeah.
You know, it's like down the South Shore, they're everywhere, you know, herring runs and all that sort of thing.
Different story.
But Different, yeah, around here, it's like you look at a map and it's Argilla Brook for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Is sort of singled out, so we would have to contend with that. But again, well number one is already right there, so it's not like the town isn't already withdrawing water from the aquifer right next to that brook. And some of the things we looked at, you know, if the well was deep enough, there can be confining layers between the aquifer we're drawing from and what the stream is influenced by. So depending on what we found through borings and test wells, you know, that would determine how concerned DEP would be. But that's probably on the top of their list to start. So, you know, that's sort of one option, you know, and if all went well, say we found a well site, you know, modeling showed that it wasn't gonna be a problem with the Superfund site, and, you know, we built a new well and a pump station, you're probably talking, like I said, maybe 5 years of time, $5 million in today's dollars. That sort of order of magnitude, what that route would be. The other route that's been studied, and the town got a grant to look at what that would look like, because that's sort of the other option, and it solves the problem, absolutely. You can crank all the water you want out of well number 3 and put a green sand filter plant in, and there'll be no more dirty water. But, you know, obviously the downside is cost. So we looked at what it would take to site a treatment plant. I think, you know, down by the ball fields back here, right before you get to well number 3. There's enough space to put a building that could, house the filters for all 3 wells. We would pump water from well number 1 across, down Gardner Street, I guess, and
Yeah, I think it was, the preliminary design was coming down the one-way along the river.
Main Street, that part of it.
Yep, and bringing the water from well 1 to the Pines. So you'd have the water from well 1, the water from well 3 and 4 going into one filter facility,
Yep.
and then getting pumped out of there out to town.
Right.
If 4 doesn't need it, why run it through also?
I mean, if you're filtering 2, it's all going
It wouldn't
together.
cost much more. I mean, you could bypass it, but you might as well put it through the filter.
I guess it's cost benefit. If you're replacing the filter twice as often, then maybe you don't want to do it, but if it's 10% more often.
Yeah, I mean, the loading on the filters wouldn't even affect it. I think we would just assume that eventually that iron manganese in well number 4 was also gonna elevate. So we would size conceptually the treatment plant as if,
Sure, you want to build for the future.
we would size it as if all the water quality from all 3 wells is what well number 3 is now, the worst we've seen.
So my question to you is, we have 1, 3, and 4 well, right? So if you put a filtration system in, we can still keep those wells.
Yep.
We can possibly even start using 1 again.
1 is up and running. Like I said, it's elevated iron manganese, but not to the point that
Okay,
treatment's
so we could
required.
use whatever one we're not using?
3, yep.
3, okay. So now we can use all the wells. We have all the water in the world, we would think. And then we
More than
have,
you have now, that's for sure.
right, and then we have to just turn around and pay for the filtration building.
Yeah.
Or whatever. That cures the people's problem in Groveland, which you just said earlier about dirty water. It's not, I just want people to understand, because we're on TV, it's not contaminated water. It's dirty to the point where we're having the iron content they're seeing in their sinks and tubs and
Yeah.
what have you. It's not like it's dirty, it's not contaminated, it's just dirty, and this is how we would possibly cure that problem.
Right, it's an aesthetic issue right now, the way
Right,
that
aesthetic.
town is.
And that
Pumping water.
building, per se, would be, what kind of money? I know you can't,
Well, I mean, we did a study, I think the number we came up with was like,
20 million.
yeah, call it
20 million.
$20 million at this point.
So that's kind of,
20 million.
when we got the grant to do the feasibility study for the treatment plant, it was to wrap our heads around how much could this potentially cost
Right.
versus, do we want to try to find a well that, if we can get clean water out of the ground
Yep.
with no minerals in it,
Right, right,
maybe that's 5 million, maybe it's 10 million.
right.
Or you clean what you already have and that's 20 million.
What's the operational cost, roughly?
It's all in the study. We'll get you a copy of that one too.
Yeah, I can't remember.
So
off
the
top of my
20
head.
million, could that be granted? Is there a grant, could it be,
So we have been in contact with Lenny Mira and Bruce Tarr. We had a meeting with myself, Rebecca, maybe Annie, I think, was there, and Lenny and Bruce were there. There's discussions about getting the money. What we usually find is Groveland is typically considered to be, like too wealthy to get a lot of the grant money.
wow,
Oh, we're not Haverhill, we're not Lawrence.
wow.
So, and most of the water grants are for very specific things. They're not just like blanket grants.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd score high on an SRF loan, so a low-interest loan, certainly I think you'd probably get. But yeah, the grant opportunities right now, a lot of it is geared towards lead and copper, lead services, PFAS treatment, which, a lot of communities are dealing with, not necessarily.
Well, and you get
Iron and manganese
communities that are
removal.
drawing water from the Merrimack, and that's real pollution. So I can see them favoring grants for that
Yeah.
Yeah, but
over something.
if the people in the town, if we can't do grants and we're not gonna get them, the people in the town are already paying for a new school, they're paying for ladder trucks, they're paying for, so they've gotta
No, it's a
really
lot of
be
money.
educated
Yep.
what we're gonna spend here if they want clean glass of
Yeah, so
water.
the math for the treatment
Crazy.
plant was 20 million, and that equated out to between $150 and $180 more per water bill for
Per
30
water
years.
bill.
For
Per water bill.
30 years.
So that 2 times a year water bill?
Four times a
Four
year.
times a year,
Yeah.
water bill.
So that's the, but that was 2021 math.
Right, so it's more now.
Um,
Yep,
So this is the stage where we kind of
right.
stopped, and
Yep.
it was,
Do you see any problem where these wells you guys can foresee, which you probably can't? You see them maybe failing, getting worse? Is there any way to tell that, if they're gonna get worse, or?
Well, they're not gonna get better, I mean,
They're not gonna
certainly.
Do you
get
have, do you have data with showing the measurements? of
yeah,
the-
we've got,
I
you know,
have a chart, an Excel sheet that I can print out or send you.
Showing the
Show-
statistics, if they're getting gradually,
Yeah.
right, I mean, well number 3 was not, required to be reduced in pumping rate and blended until, I think, 4 years ago, maybe, 4 or 5 years ago.
Right before I took.
So that, that wasn't always the case. That well used to pump a lot more water into the system. So
And a
the
stu-
levels finally came up to the point where DEP,
right.
said this is what you have to do.
A stupid question would be, if you were to turn around and build a filtration system for one well, doesn't make sense,
I was
because,
just gonna ask that, so it's not a stupid question.
well, you never know, but I mean, so if you built a smaller, instead of going 20 million, and we only went X amount of million for doing one of the best wells we have.
Yep.
Maybe the two that are tied together, and we do a smaller unit, does that make sense?
There's definitely an economy of scale to facilities like that. You could just do well number 3. I think, at the time, Colin and the commissioners were, the fear was that, you spend, say it's $10 million to just do well number 3.
And then, yeah,
And then
you s-
number 1
Well, number
says-
1's still pumping water that's not crystal clear, so people are still gonna have
Right.
dirty water ends, complaints, probably, in that end of town, they're paying for, for a treatment facility, and their water quality hasn't gotten any better. That was sort of the approach was, if it's gonna be done,
Do it
you
all.
do
So
it
when
all.
we,
And
So the delivery system is well-specific for different areas?
certainly, the area of town that well number 1 is close to, when the well is pumping, is gonna get water directly from that well. So it does, it does work like that to some
So,
degree.
at one point in time, it was talked about that you go a different route and may not even make sense, but is it cheaper to give everyone in the town of Groveland a filtration system for their house? They filter their own water, and they cured their dirty water. What's cheaper? Because at one point, when we sat in the board, there was a lot of discussion saying, we can't do 20 million, but maybe what we can do is turn around and give all the people in town, the town would pay for that, and they have to maintain it, they have to change their filters, whatever, but what's cheaper? Did you guys ever look at that route?
I don't think we looked at that route. I mean, point of use, for
But then you
water
don't-
you're gonna drink out of the faucet, a lot of people probably do that with a Brita filter or whatever. I think, part of the aesthetic issue, a lot of it is like laundry,
Right,
staining of stuff like that, or,
tubs, kids in the tubs.
yeah, I'm sure that Colin's gotten pictures of
Yeah,
bathtubs
there's
that
no
are,
shortage of that.
yeah.
I had
Okay,
I had a plumber do that exact same thing, give me an estimate. It was a couple of years ago, and I think it was about $1,500 or $2,000
Right,
to set it up just for our home.
yeah.
And so if you look at, let's say it's $3,000 now, and there are,
6,000.
how many,
6,000 maybe, homes?
no, there's nowhere near that many. There's only
No?
7,000 people in the
How many
town.
homes do you think we have?
There's like 1,800.
We have about,
You have 1,800 customers, right?
it's closer to 2,000. It's like
Okay.
19 and some change.
Okay, so, there's a $6 million solution, and everybody's got
But will
control.
that satisfy the EPA?
The DEP, well,
DEP.
I mean, that's a plumbing project. I don't think DEP,
No, would that satisfy them as far as those elevations
Oh.
and what have you?
well, no, they wouldn't allow you to pump any more water out of well 3 if you did
Okay.
point of use.
Even,
treatment.
okay,
I think what they care about is, once it goes into the system, it's potable water.
Yeah.
What happens in,
So that
With
wouldn't
people's
solve the
plumbing.
problem with them.
yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, I know one problem that when you start, messing with people's plumbing is that if their plumbing doesn't meet code, then you end up, doing a lot more work. It's like the gas explosion situation in Lawrence and Andover and everything, I think they found, they had to go in and replace people's gas plumbing in their houses, and once they went into, everyone's basement, saw what was actually in there, they ended up giving everybody
Right.
new heating systems,
Right.
it just dominoed. Yeah, it snowballs into a way more work than you ever thought it could be.
Well, it's just worth conversation.
Oh,
You know
sure.
what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Nope,
it's,
nope, that's why we're here.
it's, yeah, there's a lot of options. Like I said, in our study, we decided to say, well, what's the all-in scenario here? What's that gonna cost?
Colin, how often do you meet with selectmen and stuff to talk about water and sewer issues?
So realistically, they don't have anything to do with water and sewer issues.
But you were having a meeting to discuss, a new well and stuff, didn't you say that?
With you guys. With, well,
Oh, with the previous, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Because I was just wondering if there was something that we could have participated in, that we would have been a little bit better prepared before coming here. But it sounds like the answer is no.
Correct.
All right, thanks.
We definitely should have conversations with them when time
These are
comes.
big issues.
You know, we should, but I mean, I think we have to get all our answers first and then bring them to them. So we really,
Yeah, it's.
we gotta get a
it's-
plan together and then head that way with them, but right now, we're a little premature for that. But granted, there is issues all the time. When I sat there, I said, we should be meeting regularly with the water, but at the time, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think, having everyone on the same page is
Right,
important.
100%.
But yeah, like you said, getting all of us on the same page first would.
Right, exactly. And a lot of times too, there's a disconnect because of information. It's not the right information, we gotta get the right information, and once we get it, then we can get connected with them, and I think we can get something done.
Yeah.
But I think, what I saw when I sat there, and just letting you know, is the town people in this town, their biggest fear, and you probably know this, and I'm sure Colin and these guys, is not dirty water, it's not clear water. So going forward, do they want to spend more money on other stuff, or should they really say, hey, we got a big bill coming down the road, we better start planning for this. This is where we need to have this board and the selectmen all need to talk back and forth, so we get the right PR out to the town people saying, don't go spend any more money, because you could have a big bill coming down the road with a filtration system or whatever, if you want clean water. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where the disconnect's been. The town doesn't get, the people in the town don't get that. And a lot of times what I've said, and I'll say it on camera, I don't care, people know me, people in this town get scared into voting the way they vote. It's a sad situation, it's what happens. We really need to get to the town and say, listen, if you got a water problem, we're here to take care of it, and we have you here, and let's go talk to the selectmen at one point in time, and we'll put it all together. But I think once we know if it's gonna be a filtration system or whatever we're gonna do, we bring it forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a major impact, obviously, to a town of this size, recent examples, similar situation would be like Topsfield went through the same thing.
Yeah,
And then you can just look at what their water rates are, because they're paying for
yep.
it was probably a $10 million facility at the time, 10 years ago.
Topfield did almost exactly what we would be looking at doing. They piped all their wells to one location and treat it and send it back out.
Yep. And I think, the Linfield Center Water District is going through the same thing right now. They just, they approved a green sand plant. So, and it's,
Would there be a cheaper location to put the building, say, other than Strawberry Fields, if we did it in Strawberry Fields rather than here? Is there, for piping and money-wise, and is there a cheaper location in town to put it?
I think you've got basically two spots, so either way, you've got to run a pipe from
Yeah,
point A
from
to
one
point
to
B.
the other.
And I think
trying to find the
the
middle
site,
point?
the well 3 and well 4, it's just
Yeah.
access, and it's a nice flat area. There's enough space.
It's the best location for it.
I think so.
We already own, the water department already controls the property.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the piping aspect of that 20 million was only like 1 million. So, of that 20, 19 of it was facility.
And we're saying 20 million today, in 5 years,
Right,
it's
yeah.
probably gonna be a lot more by the time we
Yeah, I
get
mean,
going, unless we
even in
can.
the last 6 months, waterworks prices have gone up like 20%. It's
Well,
kind of a
The
crazy
last
time.
6 months are kind of an anomaly.
Yeah,
You can't-
so what it's gonna be in 5 years, I wouldn't even venture to
Right.
guess.
Right.
Yeah, so basically where the last board left off was we did the drilling for the wells, and we did the study for the treatment plant, and then we were trying to determine what the next step should be. And that's where we're at right now. So. We
Well, if I-
were weighing if we wanted to drill more wells in Strawberry Fields to see if there was water there and if it had better water quality than what we have.
How much would that cost roughly to do that?
I think to do the tests and everything and develop the wells, so no pump station, just you've
Yep.
got a well sitting
Yep.
there that's
Yep.
approved. I think it was $600,000 at the time.
And that's not
a year
guaranteed
ago.
we're gonna get good water.
No, I mean, if we did test wells and there was nothing promising, then we would just stop, you know,
Yeah.
whenever it made sense to stop.
In the area we're talking about over Strawberry Fields is out of the way, because maybe future development, rail trail, all that, it's on someplace where it's not gonna be.
Yeah, it's closer to the solar field than it is.
Yeah, by
Where you're
Angelini's land, over that way. Yeah,
Downstream.
yeah, downstream.
So I don't know, you know, I guess the only thing I would throw out there is that I always advocate for water systems to know where their next water source is gonna be, even if you don't develop it, to have a test well and say, hey, this is where a water source is gonna be, whenever it is, 50 years down the road, so you can protect that land, you know, get your zone 1 radius set. So I think even if you went the treatment route, I think there is value to seeing if that's a viable water source, because I think after that, looking at where the aquifer in town is, you sort of run out of options. There's not a lot of, certainly town-owned land, where there's aquifer. You know, a lot of towns, you can wait it out and get lucky, and a parcel can go up for sale that's got some potential aquifer, and the town can purchase it, but there's obviously no guarantees there.
What about all that state land out by, you know, fish and game land out by Georgetown?
Yeah,
There's
the
a lot of
Crane
water out
Wildlife
there.
Estate.
Yeah,
We did look at that. There's no water system out there in Groveland.
that's just runoff from
There-
the hills or?
Yeah, well, I mean,
No, there's no water piping.
there's no water pipe,
Oh,
so
oh,
you'd
oh,
have
oh,
to.
oh.
It's outside we don't have, our water system doesn't stretch out that far. So we could put a well there, but then have to do all the infrastructure in the ground to get any water out
So
of it.
so that was gonna be my next thing. So we turn around and we say to the town of Groveland people, $20 million, whatever it is. Each homeowner has to pay X amount of dollars. But what about the people in South Groveland that have wells? And what about all these, why should we be paying this when we're not even gonna be able to use it?
Yeah, so those people wouldn't pay. The only
They
people,
wouldn't pay, just the people that actually pay.
if you have a water bill, you pay.
Okay, water bill you pay, so people understand that, that's hearing this. Okay. Do you have a feel, do you have a good feel for what you were thinking? We paid you guys, you know,
What I would recommend?
Yeah.
My recommendation is to take the first step towards the Strawberry Field site. Do the modeling. If that's promising, do some test wells. And then you're not sort of making your decision at that point. I think you've got value in, at the very least, you're securing your next water supply for the future of the town. And if it looks really promising, if it, you know, at that point, you can decide to develop a water source there for, you know, like I said, at 25% of the cost of a treatment plant. And then you sort of stay status quo at wells 3 and 4. And you know, I think operationally at that point, you'd have more flexibility, so you could pump well number 3 only when you absolutely need to in the depths of the summer when, you know, right now.
When we're in a
When you're in a water ban.
drought.
Yeah.
and where do we find the money to do that?
So we would have to, you know, at this point, we can't start this right now because.
No, I'm just saying,
But, so for next budget season.
right,
We could either take money out of retained earnings, or we would have to, we can raise the rates and basically borrow the money and then pay for it that way.
Build a war chest.
and once that was done, how soon could the work actually be started, like 6 months later, or?
No, I mean, usually,
You're talking years, right?
Well, years to get a source developed and permitted. I mean, the permitting with Mass DEP is really the,
No, I mean just your testing part of it,
yeah, no, I think the groundwater modeling, that component could start right away.
right after with the
Yeah.
money and the
There's
approval.
nothing stopping us
Even
from
the
it.
test wells, I mean, we did the
Yeah.
test wells at the Pines, couple months.
Yeah, the drillers are usually like a month out.
So it's a
in
regular
schedule.
drilling company, regular?
Yeah, yep. There's a few New England, there's several companies that are, I guess, certified by the state to be able to
Yeah.
drill for drinking water wells, municipal wells. So we have a few that we work with.
So it's really, at this point, we got the man with all the knowledge telling us, right? So now what we need to do is we need to sit there and say, is this the route we'd like to go? I mean, to me, personally, it makes a lot of sense, because I know they set that land aside already. It's been set aside, they purchased it that way. And I think the land's sitting there, why don't we turn around and, figure out what we need to do to test it? I mean,
Yeah, I think,
we don't have a glass ball saying it's good down there, but,
but
Well,
unless
we're
you,
gonna find
unless you
out.
drill the test well, and you're never gonna know.
right.
Right. Like I said, it usually a lot of the towns we deal with that are in this situation, usually you exhaust all other options before you say, okay, this is, we have to go the treatment route. That's usually the way it goes. So I think in this case, that is an option that is viable from the information that we have. So we can collect more information and see if it pans out. And if it does, you end up saving a ton of money.
And we get the end result that we're looking for in the process.
Right.
When is the project and the big development, when the aggregate location, when is that, when are they looking at, running water out there to actual customers?
I think they're,
Are we still a couple of years off?
to the best of my knowledge, yes. He's still filling that property right now with Phil.
Yeah,
He
because
started
that's gonna
this-
be a good revenue stream, but it's also gonna be they're gonna use a lot of water.
Yeah, so we've already gotten their estimate for water usage. It's like 35,000 gallons a day.
And
Which,
what are we pumping right now?
yeah, it varies.
Well,
Right now, we're running well 1 at 400 gallons a minute, well 3 at 250, and well 4 at 400 gallons a minute.
okay, what does that translate per day? I gotta have the same units, because I can't do those
Yeah,
calculations.
so they pump until the tank is full, and then if no one uses water, then they could not turn on for 2 days. If people use a lot of water, they turn on in a couple hours.
Yeah, I think your
But-
your average daily use over the course of a year, was it like 400,000 gallons a day or something like that?
Could be, yeah,
All right,
Or
well,
on the hottest day of the year, maybe 1 MGD.
yeah. If we weren't in
Okay.
a water ban right now, they'd be running 24 hours a day and not shutting off.
yeah.
Colin, a question for you. Do we get water from Havel?
No.
We don't. That's just a rumor. 'Cause someone said well, they get water from the South Grove and through that.
So there's a stretch on Center Street on the other side of Salem. So like down by Johnson's Pond.
Yeah.
That small section
Is
is
off
on
of
Haverhill
it.
Water.
Okay. Okay. So they deal with that. They
Yeah,
service.
they're
them.
Haverhill Water customers.
Okay,
We have nothing
alright.
to do
So
with
we-
them.
so the people know that we're not buying water from them.
Correct.
Okay. Does
I
anyone
guess
have-
that's kind of option number
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
If you ran out of options, you could always buy water from Haverhill, which is the way the system started, and
What would that be? That would be probably,
Yeah, I don't know that. Never really been looked at since I've been around.
yeah.
You'd have to come up with some type of agreement with Haverhill,
Right.
and then I would imagine DEP would have to be involved because we'd be mixing systems.
it's a surface water supply versus groundwater, be a big change. People would notice the difference, certainly, when they drink the water.
So does any of the other board members have anything they want to put in about doing the test drill? Any thoughts?
a big difference in money, 25%.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, so,
$800 and something per family is a lot,
Right.
yeah, which is
I feel like.
kind of how
And I
we,
put the system that we were talking about, I put one on my house because I wasn't happy moving here with the water, so I put a personal system on,
What'd that cost you?
$1,500,
Yeah, okay,
and it's not great.
not doing, and
I
how
have
often
one-
you
It's
have
not
to,
as good as what I came from before. It's better,
But you
Requires
still get a
maintenance.
dirty filter every once in a while. I have one at my house,
a
and
lot, I got them a lot.
every 3 months, you gotta change it.
yeah. So the,
I just feel like 800 is a lot to bite for a lot
oh,
of
yeah,
people.
so, you know, the previous board, like I said before, this is kind of where we ended up because the conversation became, do we want to make, you know, once you guys decide something, that's it. So if you say we're building a plant, then everyone's paying $800 a year, no questions asked. Or do we look at doing a well, and it's an unknown, but it's a lot cheaper of an unknown. So that was where the discussion kind of ended with the last board, and then that board went away. So
But
we're
the-
kind of starting from scratch again.
But Colin, the unknown could be stopped if if we do the test drill, it doesn't come out right. We don't have to go to the whole 600 gamut.
Right.
We stop, yeah, we spent some money to figure this out, but, we're not going to the whole 600
Yeah, so
spent, waste money. We're gonna do the money it costs to test it, and then from there, we'll have to go back and re-meet again.
So I think the unknown part of it was we do the test well, it comes back perfect. We spend the money, build the well, and then in 5 years, the manganese and iron are there. That's the unknown, because there's no
Right.
guarantee.
Right, I get what you're saying.
So that was kind of the discussion that was happening. Even that, you know, it's $20 million is a lot of money. So this is exactly where the last board ended. So we're back in the same spot and gotta make the best decision that we can with the information we have, but I think, you know, like Ryan suggested, doing some modeling and, you know, siting a test well out there to see what,
What kind of money would that be? Let's just the test part of it. What kind of money are we talking there? Just to do the test part of it, the drilling and the test part.
Yeah, not,
Roughly.
no production well,
Yeah, no, yeah, I
no
know.
permitting,
Right.
probably $100,000 to $200,000, something like that.
so I mean, that's, in the big picture, that's pennies compared to building a treatment
Right.
facility.
Right, no, I get it. But then again, in 5 years, if we now we have manganese, we're gonna be going, what are they doing? What'd they do? You know what I mean?
So, no matter
So-
what you do, someone, you know.
So what we need to do is then we need to educate the people in the town. You know what I mean? And maybe you go to a town meeting or whatever and you educate the people somehow and say, this is the route we can go, A or B. You know what I mean? You wanna go 20 million and you wanna go this route. We're trying to be open and honest with you guys. You know, you may have 5 years, we may have manganese down the road in 5 years, but we don't know that. We have no way of figuring it. But we can guarantee you're not gonna have it at $20 million, or we gotta go 600,000 and you may have it in 5 years. And let them make the decision. You know, that's how I would, if I was sitting,
So, yeah, that's,
I mean, maybe it should be a board decision, maybe I'm wrong, but, you know,
yeah, I mean, ultimately, the decision comes down to the three of you.
right,
But
right,
that doesn't mean you can't ask for, you know, the
Right.
residents' opinions on it.
Right.
And, because they're the ones that,
Even if it only lasts 5 years, I mean, 25%, you could do it again.
right, right.
You're still ahead
Here's a question.
to some extent.
If you were to send out the water bills, is it legal? And I used to try to do this on the board, selectman board. You put a questionnaire in there and you say, would you be willing to go this route, or would you be going this route? And then turn around and we,
yeah, so we can absolutely do
you
that.
know what I mean?
And
Now
the-
we turn around, we get the 2,000 people, we got a pretty good idea what the town people are thinking. Then we come back to a meeting, we say, okay, we got our answers, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So that was something that was brought up previously. We can definitely do that and get, you know, people's, you know, feel it out and see what people think about it,
I think that makes a lot of sense myself,
so.
right?
well, they're gonna freak. I mean,
Oh,
it's $10,000 a household, right? For a $20 million plant.
Yeah, over.
Over
whatever.
30 years, you
Yeah.
said. Yeah. Um, They're still gonna freak.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's been enough discussion out there that they know it's gonna be a costly fix, but now they have another option. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
think no matter what we do, a key to it is gonna be getting as much information out to the
Right,
residents as possible.
right.
Because then they can't say that they didn't have any
Exactly.
information about it.
But I think it's important to get more information before we scare people.
Oh, yeah. So we have a good bit of the treatment information because
Right,
we
right.
already did that study.
But we
Looking
don't
at
have the alternative.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's worth waiting for.
The alternative being, I'm confused.
Being,
A possible, just
Possible
drilling
well.
another well.
yeah,
So there's basically, two main options: treat it or drill a new well.
And I get that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, we know, you're never gonna get to the end of the number, for the end of the day number for the filtration system, you're not gonna get there. We have a rough idea, and to the well, to drilling the well, we don't know if it's gonna have magnesium in 5 years or not, but we know roughly it's 1 to 200,000 to go ahead, drill, see what we got going on.
Oh, yeah, I
Are
think
they, are they
that part of
willing to
it's a
go that route?
no-brainer.
Are they willing to? Yeah,
well, I don't think we need to put the test drilling out as a questionnaire, do you?
I think we need to educate the people. That's
I think
my.
we can tell them that we're doing it, just to let them know that we're working on their behalf, but I don't think having a decision whether to do test drilling should be like a referendum. I think we should explain to them why we're doing it. We're trying to save
Yeah,
$15
no,
million.
I'm not asking for their good graces, I guess I should say, maybe I'm saying it wrong. I'm not looking for them to say it's okay to spend this or okay to, I'm just trying to educate them more or less. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, so
I'm
I
trying to
think-
educate
Yeah,
them.
so I think
That's
we
all
just tell them,
Yeah,
we're looking into
Yeah.
a lower cost
Solution.
solution.
right.
And the first step in that process is to invest $100,000 in test drilling.
Right, and that would go either into the water bill or whatever, or maybe you don't think it's needed. I'm just throwing it out there,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Maybe you don't think it's needed. We just spend the money, but what I'm trying to prevent down the road, why did we do this? And now we gotta go here. At least they know about it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what
I
mean?
think once it got to the point, for budgeting season and we're gonna appropriate the money to do it,
Right.
at that point,
They're
we
gonna
send
know it.
out something with a bill saying, hey, here's an update of what we're trying to do for improving the water system. We're gonna drill some test wells.
Right.
Look for, water with less mineral content.
Because the worst thing that happens is we do test drilling, we find out that it's no different from what well three's like already, and then we have to spend $20 million. That's the
Right.
worst thing, to say,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna save you all this money. I would do it after determining whether that is gonna be a reasonable outcome.
Yeah. So I think,
So test drilling first, just kind of announce that we're doing it, and then after that, we can say, here's one option, here's another option, here's what it costs, these are the benefits, and here's what this costs, and here are the benefits of this. So,
yeah, so we can, potentially.
but communication, you're right,
I-
just so people aren't surprised.
Right, so where I sat and how I understand what was going on and what was put before me, they don't know. They don't know. It's just, that room was over there and it was a enterprise fund and they don't know, they don't want to talk to us, they have nothing to do with us, all we gotta do is keep paying the increases. I'm trying to prevent that only by trying to be proactive out front, you know what I mean? And I agree with what you're saying, Terry, is however we do it, don't scare the people, I agree with you. But we just do a letter saying that we're thinking of, however we word it, however we say it, we're doing a well, trying to prevent $20 million cost down the road. I don't know how you'd word it.
Yeah,
I don't.
we can definitely work on that.
You
and
know what I
get
mean?
something, Yeah.
That way it goes into their bill. Now they know this board is, you know what I mean? And then they can keep in the back of it, wait a minute, before something else comes, this big expense in town comes up, maybe we better slow down here, let's look in the future. We might have a big bill coming up in the future. That's how everything should be, not only this board, every board should be done. They should know ahead of time what's coming down the pike, you know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Do we need to make a motion or,
Oh, I think so. This was more of just to kind of get everyone up to speed of
Yep.
what had been happening before you guys arrived here.
Okay.
So I think,
Maybe we're just asking for a concrete proposal.
Yeah, we don't have anything proposed, in
Yeah, you
writing
just
right
have
now.
Yep.
some vague ideas, if you could put them down,
Yeah.
costs, dates,
Yeah,
things
if you
like
know, if
that.
you want, we could give you, here's the number, I'm throwing out $100,000 to $200,000, somewhere in there, but, I can get you something, you don't have to vote on it, I think,
Yeah.
Send
it wouldn't be
like a
till next
bid,
year
Colin?
anyways.
no, not for engineering, it doesn't.
Okay.
So something to have, for the next fiscal cycle.
Yeah.
That's not a problem, we can pull that together.
Yeah, and
I
then,
think that makes sense.
yeah, and now that you guys kind of have a little bit of a background of what has already been done, I'll get you all the reports and studies and documents associated with that, so you can kind of flip through it and see what's already been done.
Right.
Great.
Okay.
So, yeah. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Thank
No
you for
problem.
coming in.
Nice to meet you all.
You too.
Alright. Next up, we got billing update. That was from your question when I had spoke
Oh,
to you.
yeah.
So we reached out to Vadar, which is our billing company. They've yet to get back to us, but I spoke with the company who, Tie Sales, who makes the equipment that actually reads the meter.
The meters, yeah.
So their product, the equipment we use to read the meters, gives us in the cubic foot reading. So
Okay.
if you use 14 cubic feet, we go
Says
by and read your
14.
house, it says 14. When it goes into the billing software rounds because we bill in 100 cubic foot increments.
But it didn't look at it like it always did.
So again, because we haven't heard back from Vadar yet, what we think that could be is when we go in, say you sell your house, we go in and write down that number. Heather and Mally in the office type that number in
So it's a manual override.
because it's a manual entry. But we haven't heard back from them yet, so we're not sure, but
Again, the thing that brought it to my attention is there should be, randomly, there should be 1 out of 100 numbers that end in 00, right? 1 through 99,
Mhm.
0 through 99. So 1 in 100 of those should be 700, 800, 900, whatever. But it seemed like it was about like 20% of them had, well, 80% of them had hundreds,
Mhm.
and maybe 20%, but 20% sounds like a lot for change of ownership, et cetera.
yeah, so
it
once
seems like a
we
lot
hear
of
once we
manual
hear back
override.
from them,
Yeah, no, I'm just curious.
yeah.
So it rounds it, it's, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up.
Yeah, so the way that the Tie Sales told me, it takes the reading and it rounds. It takes the reading and divides by 30 for some reason, and it rounds it. But, say you use 75, but we bill in increments of hundreds, it brings you up to that next 100. So you're paying for that, and then the next time around.
Next time it should be lower.
Right.
Yeah, it should average out. All right, all right,
But once we hear back from the official Vadar answer,
all right.
I'll
Yeah,
let you know.
Thanks. I mean, that's not a deal
We're
breaker, but-
speculating a lot because we haven't heard back from them.
Yep. All right, great, thanks.
And then maybe you guys have heard, maybe you haven't. We have an outdoor water ban going on right now. The whole state is in drought conditions. It just got updated last week. We're at a level 3. It only goes to level 4. So our groundwater levels are lower than normal. So we instituted the outdoor watering ban. It's not something that we typically do here a lot, but we were seeing the groundwater level is significantly lower. We don't want the wells to run dry, so I sent it out on Code Red, put it online, did 2 press releases about it. I ordered signs to put out. They just came in today, so we'll be putting those out this week. I feel like most people by now have heard about it. We've had to give a few notes to a couple houses that we're continuing to water. Towns around us, West Newbury and Georgetown, for instance, they do water bans every single summer, no matter what. We're fortunate in where we don't typically do that, but that's where we're at right now. To go along with that, I was reading the bylaws in town, and in order for us to actually enforce what's in the town bylaws, the three of you board members need to approve the water ban. For me to implement the water ban, so I'm the responsible entity for the water, so I can implement it, but in order for us to enforce it via the bylaws, you guys need to take a vote to approve it. So
I'd
that-
like to move that we have a water ban until the drought condition is lifted by the state. State or or do we want independent from the town?
Say the town, because once the state lifts it, we monitor
Right,
you know, our source
Just a little more
independently.
control if it's the town. Okay. I'd like to move that we institute a drought-related water ban until such time that the town lifts that ban.
Is that a complete water ban?
It's currently a complete water ban,
So
yeah.
there's no water in? Because at one point, someone said you can water from like 5 to 7.
Yeah, so what happens is I went straight to the complete water ban because the last time I had to do one, I put out like the partial water ban, and then like 4 days later I had to do a full one. So it's quite a bit of work to set up the code red stuff, and so I just went right to it. I saw that there was no rain forecasted,
Yep.
and I said it's not going to get any better. So currently, no watering, because the water, the levels are low, and if we run out of water, we're in trouble.
So I need a second.
I second it.
Discussion. Oh, we discussed it.
Yeah, it's been discussed.
All in favor? Aye.
So then, just the next thing that we've been working on is myself, Annie from Conservation, and Rebecca. We put together a rain barrel program, and we're going to. It's in the works, and we're hoping to have them on site right now. We're hoping to have them here for Groveland Day, and basically we're gonna have 40. We're getting 40 rain barrels, and we're going to give them out to residents on a first-come, first-served basis as a pilot program to judge how much interest there is. And
What day is Groveland Day?
that I don't know. It's in September, I believe. I think it's the first Saturday, maybe
I think it's the second.
second Saturday.
First
the
Saturday
10th.
is Labor Day weekend,
Labor
right?
Day, so I think it's the 10th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're working with a company called the Great American Rain Barrel Company. They're out of JP, I think. So basically, they're going to deliver them here on a truck. We'll unload them, and then people come and they pick up a rain barrel and hook it up and help conserve water and help people water their flowers and vegetables and all that good stuff. But
We need rain.
I was just going to say, it all revolves around rain, which we don't really have right now.
Maybe
but-
by September we will.
But yeah, we're trying it out to see how much interest there is from residents. It seems pretty popular in most towns and cities that do it. So that's that. And we need some payroll stuff signed for the end of the meeting. Customer concerns. We had a couple people come in that said they were gonna come here to the meeting, and as you
Lo and
can see, no one
behold.
showed up, so. items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting. So part of what we do is portions of town that are sewered, they all go to our main pumping station, which is located across from the old SD lumber. From there, it gets pumped to Haverhill, to their wastewater plant, and they treat it and do whatever they gotta do with it. But we have a 20-year cycle intermunicipal agreement with Haverhill, and it has been in the works to be updated for many years now. And our past commissioner, who a few years ago passed away, he was kind of spearheading the whole thing. And since he passed, we need to pick it up again and see what's going on. Basically, everything's ironed out. The last point of contention was we used to pay 3% of their capital maintenance cost for the sewer plant, and it's been tentatively agreed that we will pay 4% now. Everything else is pretty much the same. So that had been being worked on, so I have copies of the agreement for the three of you to kind of read through, and maybe we'll talk about it at the next meeting. But it's just needs to be agreed upon and signed by you guys, the selectmen, KP Law, which is the town attorney, and then we'll be good for another 20 years. So I'll give you guys copies of that. You can read through it at your leisure, and we'll talk about it again at the next meeting.
I don't know if it's gonna show up in the packet you have for us, but what's their basis for increasing it from 3 to 4%?
I'll go through the notes, so all of that kind of was tentatively agreed upon before I was in the picture. But I have good notes from the people before me,
Yeah,
so,
because if Groveland used to use 3% of the resources and now we're up to 4, then sure, that makes sense.
mhm.
If we're down to 2, because Haverhill's been building quite a lot, it seems like maybe we're being asked to pay more than our fair share.
Yeah, so,
But if you got notes, we'll.
yeah, we'll go through it,
yeah,
and,
just- I'm gonna bring that up, so,
yeah.
be prepared.
So are we using more of it, or?
We're very flat sewer usage-wise, because we don't,
We didn't add anyone.
right.
And from what I've seen, there's been a lot more going on in Haverhill
Yeah.
in terms of development.
Right.
So I would guess that our percentage usage is actually down. That'd be just my guess, but.
But if you have the same amount of houses using it, right? It wouldn't go down, would it? It would either flatten out or,
Yeah, I mean, so it's all
Well,
based on.
If theirs is going up, if theirs is going up at a higher rate than ours is going up,
Oh.
then
you're saying if they're going up at 4%, why should we go up at 4%?
If
We're not
we're-
using that much. I
Yeah.
get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something that can be looked at. Maybe everyone start by reading through this.
Yep.
And then we can get a representative from Haverhill to come to a meeting if you want to talk to them. Jimmy, the old commissioner, had been meeting with Bob Ward. He's the deputy director of the Haverhill DPW. And we'll take it from there. Heather, you got anything else?
Included in the packet, the handout, are the meeting minutes from the last meetings that we had.
Move to approve the meeting minutes from June 22nd, 2022.
I'll second.
I was gonna bring that up,
Abstain.
so thank you. So 2.
2 in
Aye.
favor.
Yep. All right.
And 1 abstention. Anything else?
Any questions? Taking it all in?
Taking it all in.
This is what I'm famous for at Concom. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Next meeting, you'll let us know about?
Yeah.